You ever feel like the ground is just constantly shifting under your feet? I mean, in a world that's always in flux, it is so easy to feel a little lost. Well, today, we're going to dig into four really powerful ideas from an ancient text, the book of Hebrews, that offer a surprisingly modern guide for finding some solid ground in our unstable world. So let's dive in. It's the big question, right? It's the one that kind of hums in the back of all of our minds. When the news feels like a nonstop barrage of uncertainty and our own lives sometimes feel like a tightrope walk, what can we actually truly hold on to? Think of this as a quest for that solid ground, a search for an anchor in the storm. So, right off the bat, Hebrews lays out this really stark contrast between two different realities. On one hand, you've got the world we see and touch, the one that's always changing, and let's be honest, often feels like it's coming apart at the seams. But then it talks about this other realm, a place of eternal stability, of unshakable value. And the key to everything we're about to talk about, it's understanding the huge difference between what's temporary and what's actually built to last forever. Okay, so if we buy into this idea of two realms, the temporary and the eternal, how in the world are we supposed to live? Well, the very first step, according to Hebrews, is to get our priorities straight. It's all about a fundamental reorientation, like recalibrating your internal compass so it's pointing toward what truly matters. What I find so compelling here is the sheer urgency of it all. This isn't presented as just, a lifestyle choice or some matter of personal preference. The author of Hebrews is basically shouting that how we respond to this message from God has eternal consequences. It's not just one of our priorities, it has to be the number one priority. Wow. This quote from the poet John Donne, it's a total game changer, isn't it? It just forces you to zoom way, way out and see your life from a completely different perspective. When you start to think in terms of eternity, all the little things that stress us out day to day, they suddenly start to shrink, don't they? Every single moment becomes an opportunity to invest in something that's going to last forever. But here's the catch. It's not just about making some big one-time decision. The real danger, the one Hebrews warns about again and again, is the slow, subtle drift. It's like a boat that's being pulled ever so gently off course by a current. You don't even realize it's happening until one day you look up and you are miles away from where you ever intended to be. So what does this drift look like today in our lives? Well, it's when we pour every ounce of our energy into climbing the corporate ladder or accumulating stuff or just chasing the approval of other people. The author of Hebrews actually compares this to a guy named Esau, who sold his entire inheritance for a single bowl of soup. It really makes you stop and wonder, right? What are the bowls of soup that we're tempted to trade our eternal inheritance for? All right, so once we've reoriented our priorities, the next logical step is to find a solid foundation to build our lives on. And this brings us to the second huge idea from Hebrews, the absolute need for an anchor for the soul, something that can hold us steady when the storms of life inevitably hit. Life is a whirlwind of change, isn't it? Our jobs, our relationships, our health, everything can feel like it's in a constant state of flux. And that's exactly why this metaphor of an anchor is so powerful. It's this idea that in the middle of all that chaos, there's one thing that remains constant, one thing that can keep us from just being tossed around by the waves. So what makes this anchor so trustworthy? The author of Hebrews uses this really fascinating word, sameness. Now, this isn't about being boring or predictable, not at all. It's about being utterly reliable, like a rock-solid foundation that you can always, always count on. In a world where everything is constantly shifting, the very idea of something or someone who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, well, that is incredibly comforting. There's this beautiful old prayer that just captures this idea perfectly. It's basically a plea to have our hearts rewired, to have our desires shifted so that we stop chasing after these fleeting pleasures and instead get our hearts fixed on the one source of true, lasting joy. It's about finally finding a real home for our deepest longings. So we've talked about getting our priorities straight and finding a firm foundation. But what does this actually look like in practice? How do we live this new reality? This is where the third key idea from Hebrews comes in, and it's all about our response. A response that is deeply rooted in gratitude. Let's just be honest for a second. Our default setting is often pretty me-centered. We spend a lot of time thinking about what we want, what we need, what we think we deserve. But the author of Hebrews challenges us to completely flip the script. Instead of constantly asking, what's in it for me? We're invited to ask a totally different question. What do I owe to the one who has given me everything?
But, and this is a huge but, this isn't about begrudgingly paying back some debt. It's not a transaction. The real driving force behind this whole new way of life is simply gratitude. It's the natural, joyful, overflowing response to being on the receiving end of an absolutely incredible gift.
And this isn't just about feeling grateful, it's about living gratefully. The author is crystal clear that our gratitude has to be expressed in tangible, real-world ways. It's about loving our neighbors, serving people in need, and sharing the resources we've been given. It's a gratitude that's always on the move, always looking for a way to bless somebody else. Yeah, this is a far cry from just a superficial thank you. The source actually warns against something it calls cheap gratitude. A gratitude that doesn't cost us anything and ultimately doesn't change us. Think of it this way. Cheap gratitude is saying thanks for dinner, but leaving a huge mess for your host to clean up. True gratitude is saying thanks and then grabbing a sponge and helping with the dishes. It's a powerful force that gets its hands dirty. Now, this whole idea of a grateful, outward-focused life leads us straight to our fourth and final idea from Hebrews. And in many ways, this might be the most countercultural one of all. Because in a world that celebrates fierce individualism, the author reminds us that this journey of faith, it's not a solo mission. It is a team sport. And this just flies in the face of that modern idea that our faith is supposed to be a private, personal matter between us and, well, whoever. The author of Hebrews would say there's simply no such thing as a solo Christian. Our faith is meant to be lived out loud, in community, right? In the messy, beautiful, and often challenging reality of our relationships with other people. So why is community so important? Well, because we are all in this together. We're all running the same race, and we all need help along the way. We need people who are going to cheer us on when we're tired, who will pick us up when we stumble, and who will gently, lovingly point out when we're starting to wander off course. The final image the author leaves us with is a race. But this isn't just any old sprint to the finish line. Nope. This is a marathon. And maybe the most important rule is that you simply do not run alone. And this isn't a competition either. We're not running in separate lanes, trying to outdo each other. Your journey is completely and totally intertwined with the journey of everyone around you. We run together, hand in hand, with a shared destiny. See, the goal isn't just for you to cross the finish line first. The goal is for all of us to cross it together, lifting up the ones who stumble along the way. So there you have it, 4 unshakable pillars for a very shaky world. A clear priority, a firm anchor, a heart of gratitude, and a deep commitment to community. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're a blueprint for a life of real meaning, purpose, and joy. And the question I want to leave you with is this. If you were to actually build your life on this foundation, what kind of person could you become? What kind of impact could you really have on the world?